Hello, my name is Michael Souza and I came from the University of Coimbra, and I also collaborate with the Lusofona University. I'm a PhD candidate in spatial planning, and I've been working in several projects and doing game design and using analog games to do collaborative planning and teaching urban planning and spatial planning through games. I'll be presenting my research about helping teachers to engage students in the potential of modding and using modern board games. Before the COVID pandemic, we were living in the golden age of modern board games. Tabletop and board games releases increased in the last years, as we can see in the graphic, in exponential way. Only the pandemic decreased this number of releases in 2020. Teachers and lecturers face the challenge to motivate students in their classes. The ongoing pandemic forced teachers to use streaming and collaborative tools like Zoom, for example. So learning from modern board games can help teachers and lecturers if we understand their mechanics and the way to transpose those dynamics to the lectures online and face-to-face. The objective of this presentation is to explore modern board game designs, use these modern board game designs for game-based learning approaches, and use modern board game designs to face-to-face and online lectures to improve the learning process. Considering the method, the participants were university students from different courses and with different numbers of participants each time. The variables that we considered was engagement, complexity, and goals achievement. Data sources were questionnaires, game outcomes, and observations. The procedure that we followed was the series games approaches. The several frameworks inspired us, but mainly this design play experience DPA framework with proper adaptations to each specific case and to the specific nature of analog board games and their ways and their needs to explore the lack of automations and how the players interact with each other in multiplayers and with the game itself. We classify the results of our variables with low, medium, and high. The first case study, you used existing game without any adaptation to do this before an exercise about collaborative process. This was intended to do the ice breaking. The game was Happy Salmon. This occurred in the University of Aveiro. The number of participants were 10. The results were high engagement, low complexity, and the goals achievements were high. The second case study, it's a modding of an existing game. It was a session in a conference of the CITA Research Center International Conference with this workshop where the participants explored between two cities. The game was modified to allow free urban morphology expression, so players could build their cities in any form they would like, but everything about the game was maintained, especially the semi-collaborative approach. It was at the University of Porto, 16 participants. The engagement were medium, the complexity was high because it was a more complex game, and the goals achievement were medium. The goals achievement were mainly collected during the debriefing process. The third case, it's a case where I've created my own game, own creation, by using modern board game mechanics to build this game to approach and to allow to simulate a urban reality, a city, and to approach the game system, approach the urban sustainability. It was at Polytechnic of Leiria. The number of participants were 8, and the engagement were high, the complexity high, and goals achievement also high. The last case is an example how to transpose some existing games and some adaptations. I created a process of collaborative planning, ideation, decision making, and planning about solutions to approach an urban deindustrialization process. An hypothetical city that was passing through an industrialization process, which is an important theme for planning and for environmental engineering. This happened at Nova University of Lisbon, 26 participant students, and the results were medium, engagement medium, complexity medium, and goals achievement medium. An example in this paper about this, where I adapted the DPA framework and added the facilitator role and adapted the quadrants to apply to analog games. To discuss, I consider that we need to define the lecture goals. Then we need to choose if we want to play existing games, modify existing games, and design new games to accomplish the lecture goals. Then we do need to play tests, play the game, debriefing, and evaluate. The debriefing is very important to understand if the players achieve the goals and to reinforce some of the issues that we intended to approach in the game that might not be achievable or might not were evident. In conclusion, playing and exploring these games is mandatory in order to use them. Some basic knowledge about game design is needed. Serious games frameworks are evolving and need adaptation to each specific case. Modern board games, designs, and mechanics can support serious games and online applications. Facilitation to learn the game and explore debriefing is mandatory, and games were more complex to play than previously predicted by myself when experimenting the games. Students prefer face-to-face dynamics because of the social interaction. Students state that learning through games is more engaging and fun, and students would like to have more game-based activities. This is the final remarks, what I've concluded from the several case studies. Reflecting on these matters, I would like to highlight some of these topics. For example, I think teachers can use and can profit from modern board games, but they need to play the games and to be up to date to the new releases. If they play and they study a bit about game design, I think they can see many examples, and if they look for the list of the many analog game mechanisms, they will be ready to at least adapt some of them to their lectures and in making them more engaging for students and helping the learning process. Of course, if the teachers and the lecturers play many games and have these games, they can apply them directly, but with this basic knowledge that I've talked about, they could add some details, some new additions, small things to their lectures to improve the experience. But if they feel comfortable, I think they can create their own games, but I should state that this is more challenging and demand more knowledge, and there's a lot of playtesting involving, and to playtest we need to have time and players to test the games. And then in the case of a serious game like this, we need to also evaluate the goals, and if the game is achieving the goals and that the time spent on the game, it's have more impact than the traditional methods. And these are the references because many of these cases were published in several journals and conferences. Thank you very much for your attention. It will be a pleasure to answer any of your questions, and please contact me if you want more details about my research. Thank you.